Welcome to the News9 Plus show on the world's first news and current affairs OTT platform, News9 Plus. Today is International Women's Day. There's a school of thought that thinks we must celebrate womanhood every day of the year. So what are we celebrating? Well, for starters, India has passed a legislation mandating reservation for women in parliament. But gender parity remains a distant dream, particularly in our boardrooms. Crimes against women are on the rise, and India ranks 128th out of 177 countries on women's inclusion, justice and security. But we decided to celebrate a set of achievers who've blazed a trail in professions so far dominated by men. Now, before Women's Day goes out of fashion, I'm joined by cinematographer Priya Seth, Gunjan Taneja, Radhika Srivastav, and my two colleagues Nivriti Mohan and Lakshana Gulati, who've been tracking women achievers throughout their career here at News9 Plus. Ladies, welcome to the News9 Plus show. It's so good to be having you all here. This is a women's only show. I think I'm in a minority right here. But, I'm going to start by asking you, Priya, how difficult has it been for you in the film industry? That was a male bastion until not so long ago.
Hi, nice to meet you all. And since we have a brief window to celebrate Women's Day, because we get about 24 hours in 365 days, happy Women's Day. The reason I'm here is, I guess, because, it's a very different journey for men and women. And it's not only in the film industry. I think it is pretty much in every profession. Certain professions like ours have it a little harder.
Right.
It's been tough, and I think it is still, it's interesting because 2 days ago there was this American Society of Cinematographers Awards that was conducted in America, and they, I would say, would be at the forefront of at least inclusion and having a larger number of women cinematographers in their industry. And still, when they had their awards, there was this photograph which has now become famous, which is just lots and lots of white men in a photograph getting accolades for cinematography in a year.
Right.
And it has gone up a little bit because, again, we're wondering, where are the women? So it has been hard, it is hard, and it feels like it's going to continue being hard.
Right. No. Where are the women, Priya? But then when anyone tells me that about Hollywood especially, I have just one name to say, Greta Gerwig. $1 billion, the Barbie movie. It beat Oppenheimer at the box office even.
And it's nominated for the Oscar for the Best Picture as well.
Oscar for Best Picture, but not for Best Director. I mean, I wonder what that misses. But Lakshana, you've been tracking women in the boardroom, and you have some very big women achievers here. You have a question for them.
Yes, sir. So before I get to that, I've also been throughout my career at News9 Plus, been tracking very women-centric stories, right? We talked about Nari Shakti in the army, where women were very, very present. We talked about, the W factor in elections, where it was the women right there in the forefront, electing the leaders that they want. But a very, very poignant question that strikes anybody who just does a basic research on women in boardrooms is, like Priya was saying, where are the women?
Where are the women?
Because if you look at the statistics for Indian women directors in boardrooms right now, it's a paltry, it's a measly 19%. That just shows, and India, by the way, is a signatory to the gender equitable, getting gender parity, and by 2030. So you can imagine we are nowhere near that.
We're nowhere near that. 19% is an abysmal figure. And I want to ask Radhika Srivastav this. Radhika, this figure of 19%, I mean, it's one of the lowest in the world. As Lakshana was saying, when can we expect more women in the boardroom?
Yeah, very interesting conversation. I'm very glad to be weighing in on this. Look, as someone who's running a higher education institution, a business school, we take our responsibility very seriously. We have to, ultimately it's our responsibility to see this number of 19% gets to a much higher level by whatever target date has been set. And I say this because business schools are preparing MBA students. MBA students not just create careers for themselves, but they can be job creators through entrepreneurship activities. They rise the corporate ladders to become senior people in organizations, and therefore our role is very pivotal in shaping the future. And to me, the way schools should do it, and we are doing it, is you have to set up, you have to do what you are teaching students to do. So as a school, they have to see women as leaders, women as deans, as program chairs, women in all the strategic and critical roles, and they have to see women at the decision making table. So that's what we're doing. I think we're a very unique school in India, maybe even globally, where we have prioritized not just women in our workforce, but women in the boardroom, like you said. We're going beyond compliance. We are trying to increase the number of curricular items that our students see relating to women, whether it's about the case studies or the speakers that they see come and speak to them from the industry, the kind of alumni we have through the mentorship program. So trying to do our bit, and hoping to contribute to getting to the desired number by 2030.
Right. And
also,
yes.
one very interesting thing that I have come across with all the guests that I've interviewed is also, ma'am, and I think you'd agree, and I think Indira Nooyi put it so well. She said that your career clock
Yes.
for most women is in direct conflict with your biological clock. So
exactly,
which is,
yes.
I think, there is no problem with getting women in the workforce.
Yeah.
India has the biggest number of STEM women graduates as
Yes.
well, right? So I think the conflict or the the bottlenecks really seep in when you're looking at women getting into the workforce, then
Right.
getting married, then having to drop out, because they are still, and this is a mindset also that society has, that women are the primary caregivers.
Yes.
So how can we stop those bottlenecks is, I think, one of the primary things that we need to address.
Right, absolutely. And in fact, I'm going to, Nivriti's been listening to this very patiently. I'm going to ask you the women achievers that you've been profiling on the border in very harsh conditions. But I first want to ask Gunjan this question. Gunjan, in the US, it's one step backwards, it's two steps forwards and one step backwards. US women are fighting for abortion rights that they won 51 years ago. I mean, where did that
Roe
come from?
versus-
Who would have, Roe versus
Wade
Wade
was
in
overturned.
2024. Who would have thought that would have been overturned? How do you see this, playing out, Gunjan, given the fact that you're looking at the world's most prosperous, the world's only superpower, and you have women fighting for abortion rights half a century later?
That's actually very, very sad. I feel like I'm very privileged that I've born in India, and today I have that right on my body. Our country, the government gives us that right, that legal right on our bodies, and I think it's very unfortunate to see that the women in the West, like you rightly said, one of the most developed economies that almost the entire Indian race looks up to. When we talk about following the full footsteps for development, women there have to fight for their right on their body. So that actually really saddens me. Having said that, I think it all boils down to choice everywhere for women. We need to have control of the choices that we make for ourselves, our lives, our bodies. It all boils down to that. And nobody, no government, no other human, no legislation, no country, no rules, should take that away from a woman when it comes to choices about their bodies, their religion, their livelihood, their belief system, all of that. I mean, these are fundamental rights, and I see that as a violation of fundamental as well as human rights for all the women out there who are dealing with this issue. And even in India, while legally we are allowed and legally we have that liberty, but the social construct for, and let's just forget the very small percentage of urban women, the vast majority, even in India, because of the social fabric of this country, or because of the social construct, the family construct of this country, they also face these issues.
Yes.
While legally they're allowed, but they are not able to even practice their legal rights in India.
Right.
There have been so many movies where I mean, even in India, the rural India and the backward India, women are fighting for something as fundamental as access to sanitary pads.
Yes.
Access to, urging husbands to use contraceptives so that they don't have to be on those body messing pills all their lives. So again, while we're talking about the US, there is still a long way for us, even in this country, to go for protecting women, their health and their bodies.
Right, absolutely. Women, their health and their bodies. And Nivriti, you've been listening very patiently. You were in Ladakh not so long ago, and you did that story, I remember, Manning the Heights. Super high altitude, the first all-woman BRO team to build infrastructure on the China border. Tell us about that experience and that very unusual army officer that you met over there, that you've been talking to all of us about.
Right. Before I come to the women achievers, I would like to tell you that this has been a very, very long struggle. It is not that women have started achieving all of a sudden.
Right.
So it was, you were talking of women reservation bill. So it was in 1996 when the women reservation was talked about in the parliament.
Yes.
For the first time.
Right.
And it is 2024 now. It took around 30 years, for the women reservation bill to be passed in the parliament. So this has been a long struggle. This is not in politics only. If you talk about armed forces as well, it was a long fight in courts to get that permanent.
Yeah, almost 3 decades.
Yeah, almost 3 decades to get the permanent commission.
Yes.
So earlier, there were no women in the armed forces. But then when women came in, they had to struggle to get the permanent commission.
Yes.
Now after they fought, the women themselves fought for this permanent commission and they got it, and now they are being placed in positions, in commanding positions.
Yes.
So if I talk of a few women, because I covered BRO, BRO women, so if I talk of few women,
BRO, of course, is the Border Roads Organization, which builds all the tough infrastructure on the borders.
So Vaishali Hivase, she is the first woman to command a road construction company.
Yes.
Obing Taki also commanded a road construction company. Then Major Aina Rana is the one who commanded an all-women RCC in Uttarakhand.
Right.
Then there are many achievers. Then coming to my story, which I did in Ladakh at an altitude of around 15,000 and 19,000 feet above sea level.
Right.
So Colonel Ponung Doming, she is the first women commander to command the world's highest women task force.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So earlier women were not posted because they were not considered physically that fit to be at that altitude.
Right.
But now they are doing it because they are being given a chance to do that, to do something that women had not done earlier.
Absolutely. It's a very inspiring story.
Yes, and it is an all-women task force.
Yes, an all-women task force, and you went to cover it, and I remember how concerned we were about whether you could go to 15,000 feet and do that story, and you spent
when I came back, I was really worried about all the women officers who were working there, but then I thought that I should not think it like that, because that will also be considered a bias towards women.
Let's watch an excerpt from Manning the Heights by Nivriti Mohan. It's about the first all-women border task force of the BRO that's building infrastructure on the China border. Let's take a look.
On India's 77th Independence Day, an all-women unit of border roads organization led by Colonel Ponung Doming inaugurated the world's highest motorable road. Ladakh is strategically important for India. It is the only place where the Indian Army faces both its adversaries. Ladakh is a high altitude desert. Temperatures of -20 to -30 degrees and low oxygen levels here make survival tough. Being stationed in the sensitive eastern Ladakh sector is a tough but prestigious assignment. It is a matter of national pride that infrastructure development along the LAC is being looked after by the daughters of India. In such challenging circumstances, 3 stars twinkle the brightest here. They are the women officers of the highest border roads task force in the world.
All the BRTF, whether it's gentlemen or women, this is the highest BRTF in BR.
We have got the opportunity, and it's the challenges that boosting us up to work in such a place.
उनको भरोसा है कि हम लोग कर लेंगे.
That story inspires me every time I see it, Nivriti. And Priya, this thing about the BRO Women Task Force, how difficult is it for women in the film industry, especially when you're on outdoor locations like the one that you just saw? Is it, have things improved now in the last couple of years?
You know, I have to make an attempt to not be sarcastic to answer these questions, because it is difficult. The only part that is difficult for women when we are on outdoor locations are when there are no mindful arrangements for toilets.
Yes.
That's the difficult part. I don't think there is any difference in, you know, what, I mean, I've shot a couple of war films now, and the question would keep coming up about, am I capable enough? Will I be able to handle the pressure enough? You know, I think these questions will, these come from men, honestly,
right.
Because I don't think a woman would question a woman whether she can handle pressure or she can handle whether she's physically able to. I mean, women have babies.
Yes.
I don't think to put a man in the same position, I think he would be out for a year after he had a baby. So I don't think strength of a woman is anything to be questioned.
Right, right.
These questions don't come from women, they come from men. So when we, you know, when there are more women in these positions, there are more women making decisions for women, then I think all these questions will be put on the back burner, including whether women can lead in the army or women can shoot films. All these questions come when men question.
Right. Okay,
also,
I rest my case.
Also, I think, like, you know, Priya was saying, it's a
yes.
mindset thing,
it
right?
Is a mindset,
so,
yes.
for instance, one of the interviewees for my story on women in boardrooms, right?
Yes.
She had gone to actually make a pitch to a promoter.
Yeah.
And, you know, so after that pitch, when she wanted to use the restroom, there was no restroom for a lady.
Yes.
So, and, you know, so the promoter was like, oh, we don't expect, you are one of the few who come here. But,
right.
you know, so that's, I think it requires a lot of sensitization right from the start, and it's not a question of questioning women's capabilities. You know, it's just maybe a question of having more real life examples out there. You know, more women present, more women in leadership roles, more women who are present, so that these things are then, you know, ironed out.
And a day when we celebrate Men's Day also. With Women's Day.
With Women's Day,
yeah.
Exactly.
Yes, so actually I must tell you ladies that there were, we had Surgeon Vice Admiral Aarti Sareen in the office a few days ago, and she said that, look, I really look forward to the day when we don't celebrate Women's Day at all, because it's kind of getting a little uncomfortable. But, you know, on that note, Gunjan, I want to ask you about how India is ranked 127th on the global index of the Global Gender Gap report, and you know, the female ratio in the workforce is just 78 to 18%. The contribution of women to the GDP is just 18%, and these are abysmal numbers.
And I mean, they make 50% of the voters.
Of the voters, exactly. I mean, these are abysmal numbers, especially at a time when you're talking about Nari Shakti.
Yeah, so I'll take an example for my own industry. I come from non industry.
Yes.
Okay, so before,
and you've played, I must add that you've played your part in ensuring that women, you know, aren't washing clothes, and you know, you've done that thing with UClean.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, because men wash it for the women at UClean. Yes. But even when I started, it was really difficult. I just, you know, just to kind of give everyone a taste of how it feels like being the only woman in a men's only industry. So when I started this business with my husband, now we were working with a lot of gray collared and blue collared workforce.
Right.
And I was the only girl in the entire office. I was the only girl in the entire field of the work where we had our store and etc. Because it's my business. I wanted to learn everything. I was with my own hands washing clothes and doing ironing for our customers. And there used to be such men used to get so uncomfortable around me, my own team. And even in my own team, it took me so many years of proving my mettle, of working shoulder to shoulder with all of the guys to earn respect. It was not like that I was the boss or I started this company and I've hired you. I'm paying your salaries that you will automatically give me respect. It
Right.
was never like that. It was like gradually years it took me to prove myself in an industry like this. And I'm so glad I've kind of paved the way for women to look at this as a profession, as well as a lot of our franchisees have been encouraged. Earlier, we were only men who used to come to us for a franchise. Today, we have a
Right.
good 18 to 20% women franchisees in the business. So I'm very happy that I did it, because it, I mean, whenever I used to look around, I never used to find a single woman
Right.
like 7 years ago when
Absolutely.
I
We're
started this.
Also,
completely.
I want
Yes.
to ask, Gunjan, she said that, it took me, you said that it took me, years to prove yourself, and you had to work shoulder to shoulder. Also, in cases, it's about women having to, prove themselves, work doubly harder. So, when do you think that is actually, not going to be the norm? Because you do have to prove, and I don't think a man in this case would have to, kind of prove himself or work doubly harder or put in. And this is when you are dealing with household. This is when, we women don't have it easy at work. You are dealing with stuff at home, you are dealing with stuff in the office, and you're literally having, so how, I want to know how you did that. And
So it was very difficult because, I had a very parallel example with me, because my husband, by the virtue of being a man, he was automatically like he's the boss, chief, and this is how very respectfully he was always treated, always sought opinions. And when I was like really toiling hard, a lot of times my opinion in this boys' clubs, even in my own company, were like rubbished as undoable, or something which was like crazy, we can't do it, or as simple as the men do not want to even make an effort to make those changes happen, which are right there for everyone to see that it will improve economies, it will improve efficiencies. They would just not listen or pay heed to the suggestion. And a lot of times I had to like really roll up my sleeves and get down to work to show them that this can be done, because just because it's coming from me doesn't mean that it can be rubbished off, right?
Absolutely.
So yes, and I was raising a family. I mean, we started the company, and a year and a half later, I become a mother. So I'm raising a family. I'm doing the business. I'm working on the ground with them. And after so many years, and even during my maternity,
Gunjan, I'm going to ask you to wrap up. I'm so sorry, we're completely out of time. But what a fascinating discussion. We must continue this after this show. But thank you very much, Radhika, Gunjan, and Priya, and my colleagues Lakshna and Nivriti for joining us on Manning the World Women's Day today. And I sincerely look forward to the day when we don't have to celebrate another Women's Day, especially an international
celebrate
day.
a Men's Day.
Or we can, yes. Yeah. I'll hold you to that. Thank you very much, ladies. So wonderful speaking with you.
Thank you.
For the last 4 years, India and China have been locked in a military standoff along the LAC. It's unprecedented. Never in human history have so many hundreds of thousands of soldiers stood off at super high altitudes. Now, for decades, India did not build significant border infrastructure. Successive governments believed the Chinese would actually use that infrastructure to invade us. But now the tide is turning. In the last 3 years, India has increased its budget for the BRO by 10 times. Prime Minister Modi is set to inaugurate the strategic Sela Tunnel, which connects Tawang with Assam. It's my great privilege today to welcome to the News 9 Plus show General VP Malik. General Malik, welcome to the News9 Plus show.
Jai Hind, Sandeep, and thank you very much. Jai Hind to all your viewers also.
General Malik, I want to start by asking you, you led the army to victory in the Kargil war 25 years ago. But I'm equally conscious of the fact that you were also a veteran of the 1962 Indo-China border war. Did you think in 1999 that at some point the Indian army that you left behind would actually be facing off against China along the LAC, the way they are today?
Sandeep, I was involved in the 1962 war. That time I was posted with my battalion as a young lieutenant in the Ladakh sector. And subsequently on the LOC, on the LAC, line of actual control, I was second in command in the sector of Sela during 1971. And subsequently I commanded my battalion in Walong sector in the northeast again. Yes, 1999, we didn't think much of China being so aggressive. In fact, we considered Pakistan to be our adversary number one. And while we were conscious of the line of actual control being undemarcated and off and on patrolling clashes also took place in that area. Not clashes, but confrontations, I would say. But at that time, we didn't think that we will have the kind of situation that we face today along the line of actual control.
Absolutely. And we woke up 4 years back to the Chinese military threat, and we're actually entering the fifth year. But General Malik, you know, there's also a change in our posture along the LAC with regard to infrastructure. For several years, we didn't build up infrastructure. In fact, you had a defense minister who stood up in parliament and said we didn't build infrastructure, we thought the Chinese would use it. How are you viewing the massive spurt in infrastructure building along the LAC today?
Sandeep, firstly, you are right that till about the late 70s, we did not pay any attention to the infrastructure near the line of actual control. And there were some people who thought that the Chinese may use it, and therefore we didn't make any effort to improve our infrastructure. But having said that, let me also say that infrastructure in this area along the Himalayan mountains and along the line of actual control is extremely important if we have to defend ourselves or if we have to carry out any offensive operation.
Right.
And I would say till late 70s, it was a negative thinking. Then we woke up sometimes in 86, 87 when Guangdong operation took place.
Yes.
And there was some effort made at that time and some roads were constructed, let's say in Walong sector and even in Tawang sector. But then again, there was a lull and we went to sleep. But it's, I'm very happy to see that now there is a lot of emphasis on the improvement of infrastructure, not only road construction, but also tunnels, railway lines being taken, particularly in the western sector. And so many bridges have come up, and even the villages along the line of control, they have also been adopted, and there is a lot of improvement taking place. And as I said earlier, unless you improve the infrastructure, you cannot really defend that terrain, that
Absolutely.
area.
In fact,
either defensive or for offensive operation.
Absolutely. General Malik, you know, we have in our studio my colleague Nivriti Mohan, who's actually brought back this exclusive story on the Sela tunnel, the tunnel that the Prime Minister is going to shortly inaugurate. Nivriti, tell us how significant this Sela tunnel is and how it alters the balance along the LAC.
Let me tell you first of all that you know, when since the inception of BRO and after its inception up to 60 years,
yes,
they were constructing only 4 tunnels.
Right.
They had constructed only 4 tunnels, and now they've already constructed, in last few years, they have constructed 6 tunnels. They are working on 10 tunnels,
right,
and they are planning to construct 18 more tunnels. So there has been a lot of emphasis, lot of importance is being given to building tunnels. Why? Because it is the way to all weather connectivity through bridges, through tunnels. The government and the BRO, they are making all the effort to connect the border areas, the men who are working, who are toiling in the front line, to make everything accessible to them. So if we talk about Sela Tunnel, it is around 7 kilometers of approach road on Balipara Tawang road has been built to connect these tunnels, and there are two tunnels. Tunnel 1 is around 1005 meters, then there is another link road of around 1 kilometer, then there is tunnel 2, which is around 1500 meters or 1595 meters, I think. So 1.5 kilometer of the other tunnel, which also has an escape tunnel, and then around 1 kilometer or so another approach road. So entire project is a 12 kilometers long project, and it costs around 825.
And it was built in just 5 years.
It's in 2019 they started working on it, and then due to weather conditions they had a cloudburst at the site, I think last year, and then COVID was also there. But still they could manage to build it in 5 years period.
Right, absolutely. In fact, you can watch an excerpt. Let's watch an excerpt from your story, Nivriti, Tunnel to Tawang, which talks about how this tunnel is going to be a game changer for the Indian Army.
Sela, the longest bi-lane tunnel in the world at 13,000 feet. Ensures all weather connectivity to the line of actual control. Faster movement of troops to the borders, connects India's mainland to strategically important Tawang sector. Built in Arunachal in territory once occupied by China in 1962, the tunnel is giving sleepless nights to India's hostile neighbor.
This tunnel and many other such projects will provide facilities and a better sustenance capability both for the civilians in this area as well as for the military.
During the winters, it becomes a formidable obstacle for the traffic to go over the Sela Pass.
The Sela tunnel is around 30 to 40 kilometers aerial distance from the border, quite in a close proximity to the border, I would say.
General Malik, there's a Rusi report which just came out which says that war could break out between India and China by 2030. You know, primarily because the infrastructure is now so developed that both countries can rush their armies to the border much quickly, much faster than they could before. And of course, the fact that the Indian Army is far better poised on the border today than it was several years ago. Do you see prospects of a conflict given the fact that we are so, close to the border with the Chinese, literally eyeballing each other?
Sandeep, as long as our line of actual control and the border, which in any case will come after the line of actual control, can be settled, as long as the war can take place anytime.
Right.
And as you notice already, the agreement that we signed of, having peace along the line of actual control in 1996 with China, that already has broken. And 2020, the Chinese attacked our eastern Ladakh sector, and we had casualties on both sides. Similarly, there have been many confrontations even in the northeast. So war can break out, and therefore we have to remain alert all along.
Right.
And it is for that kind of a situation that we have now also posted additional troops, and we have changed our operational plan, both for defensive as well as offensive operation. And for all that, infrastructure is absolutely essential.
Infrastructure is absolutely essential. Yes. Thank you, General Malik. I'm afraid we're completely out of time, but thank you so much for joining us this evening. It's, what you just mentioned, it's frightening, the fact that war could break out between India and China, and certainly it's not going to be India that will initiate that war, it will be China, and in such an eventuality, it's going to be infrastructure projects like the tunnel to Tawang that the Indian Army will rely on to protect our borders. Thank you very much, General Malik, my colleague Nivriti Mohan, for joining us this evening.